in terms of how the species react with oil, sea turtles as a whole seem to be reacting the same. Now, in the care of them, what you have to watch out is different species don't get along. And that is where, like the Kemp's Ridleys that are next to me, all have to be housed individually because they don't play well together. So we keep them housed individually. Green sea turtles, in their care, they don't mind. They actually like to be put together. They rest on each other. So those can be housed together. Hawksbills, do not put them together or with any other species. Loggerheads, the same way. Loggerheads, when they're smaller, are extremely aggressive animals. When we lift up a loggerhead, his mouth goes open immediately, and he wants to bite the first thing that comes anywhere near his mouth. So in that aspect and treatment, that is where things are different. But we're finding across the board that the reaction to the oil, to the hydrocarbons, is pretty much the same so far. Yes.
Okay. Now let's go out to, let's go out on the Gulf here. I know a lot of people are very, very curious about what's actually happening out on the Gulf at some of these. Walk me through how a turtle potentially would find themselves in danger and then be rescued. It's our understanding that they're feeding on the sargassum, that, potentially they're mistaking the sargassum for or oiled spaces for sargassum. And so is that mostly where this is kind of beginning, that they're looking to, like they're going to be feeding and they get themselves in it, or is just the proliferation of oil right now so great that no matter where they're swimming, they're going to get hit?
In finding them, it is a science. Gulf of Mexico is a very large body of water, and most of the animals that we have in here are what we call pelagic age, so they're pretty small. And they are the ones that want to hide out in what we call weed lines, which is the sargassum. They'll get in a row of sargassum, and in the normal world, in there would be a source of food for them. It also provides them with a source of protection against predators. So what's happening is Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and NOAA is going out in boats and with an eye in the sky. They'll find what we call a weed line, look for the animals. Now, this weed line could be covered with oil, therefore the animals are covered with oil too. Now, the other thing that's happening is the oil is clumping to make it look like it's a weed line. And the sea turtles go to it as well, and then lo and behold, they're in the oil. They're completely covered. They've ingested the oil. So you have both. You have the weed line getting, the real weed line getting covered in oil, and then you have oil forming and making it look like a weed line. So they go out, they find these areas, and they watch for the turtles to come up, pop their heads up. If they're covered in oil, they'll dip net them out, put them onto a boat. That smaller boat runs to what's called a support boat, which has a veterinarian on board. And the veterinarian can, remove some of the oil so the animal's not stressed. In the field, on the boat, they'll remove some of the oil then. Again, they will be sure to take samples of the oil and seal that up for us. And then they'll watch the animal. If the animal should be too lethargic, that veterinarian can go ahead and administer fluids in the field to the animal at that time. And then once they are finished for the day, they bring the boat in. At that time, they've already called me from a satellite phone saying, this is how many animals I have coming in. My team gets ready to receive because it is a lot. We have to wear, PPE. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of turtle tubs set up for the animals for the night. So we go ahead and start our preparation job as the animals are being curried from the boat dock to the aquatic center here at Audubon Nature Institute. So, yeah.
What are all the different things that these complex hydrocarbons, because it's not just this crude oil, it's also these gases and the dispersants and things like that. What are all the different ways that a turtle can be affected? Is it all internal, or is it external? Is it respiratory? I mean, how many ways can this stuff kill a turtle?
In all different ways. It's initially on contact, on skin contact and eye contact with the oil. It can cause ulcers in the animal's eyes. It can cause ulcers on their skin, which would start to set them up for compromise that way. Externally, internally, it can give them respiratory failure due to inhaling it, ingesting it. It can give them digestive complications along the way. It can start to set them up for kidney failure. It can set them up on their immune system as a whole. It can start to compromise their immune system, and then once that's compromised, then you end up with something like pneumonia, which I was speaking earlier about one of our guys who had that. That's all derived from the onslaught of having been exposed to the oil to begin with. So very much how it affects humans is also how it affects us. And that's dealing with the oil and the gases. The dispersant, we don't know. That is something we're pioneering now. We can't say that we've gotten animals with dispersant on them because we don't know.
So some of the reports that have come back, or have you had reports come back yet? And in those reports, has there been any discussion of, the dispersants being an agent of death?
Not right now. We haven't heard that, and we haven't had scientific proof along those ends just yet. So, but as we move along, that may very well change in the near future.
Have you gotten any of your necropsies back yet? And is that material that will be published sometime when you do?
Yes, that will be published. That is with NOAA. They're in charge of that process, and they have a website, and they will be, publishing that information and providing it to, also to VP and to the rest of us as well.
You'd mentioned earlier about, part of this was in effect collecting evidence when you're looking for the toxicology reports and so on. Why did you refer to it as evidence? Is there some expectation at some point in time that there may be some criminal charges? I know U.S. Fish and Wildlife is, for instance, a trust for our country in terms of its animals, and they collect evidence to be able to potentially charge, criminal investigation. Is that something that your organization does, or do you participate with some of the other organizations just to provide all that material?
We're just providing the information and the material. That is what we were instructed to do. It is not Audubon Nature Institute's position to, go legally against anything. What we are here for is to take care of these animals and provide care for them. And, whether it be short-term housing, long-term housing, that is what we're here for. But we were instructed by other agencies, to retain samples, and that's what we do.
Now, I know there's been... Okay, good. I can get to the two big questions. First one is in terms of the burning. Anytime there's like a shortage of information or people are having a hard time, a lot of information is kind of manufactured. Now, there's been various stories about sea turtles being burned at sea. Is there any truth to that? Is there any remedy to that if that in fact is happening, where there's people out at the burn sites that can help foster the animals out? That's the first thing. And then the second question will be about the eggs and movement of eggs, to be relocated.
I think on the burning of the sea turtles, I think you would have to look to the people who said that. Do they actually have video footage of it? And to my knowledge, I've not seen that.
I've not seen any yet either.
And so that would be, I can't say that that's happening because nobody has provided evidence.
And you've not been brought any burnt carcasses or any kind of evidence in any way, shape, or form?
Nothing like that. None of our animals have been burned. They are just covered in oil. The same thing with the carcasses.
Okay. In terms of nesting and the fact that this is now a period where a lot of the turtles are laying eggs, there's an understanding that a lot of eggs may be, because they're in zones that there may be a lot of trampling, that a lot of those eggs are going to be relocated. How much do you know about that, and what kind of success rate do you find in relocating turtle eggs?
I really don't. I've heard the same report. I know that is being handled by United States Fish and Wildlife, and they're by far the sea turtle experts. And if there's going to be somebody to move eggs, they should be the ones to move them. They have scientists, they have veterinarians, and they're doing it in an effort to save the animals and save the species as a whole, the loggerhead species and the hawksbill species.